Hello, welcome to Leftover Masters. We are doing a dessert edition tonight. Instead of going to the fridge, we're going to go to the pantry. And we've got some leftovers. I was actually going through we kind of have like a little nut storage area, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. So, coming up with something, we had a lot of requests for dessert, and we had a particular request for baklava, which I tend to make every year about this time as a special treat for some of the people I work with. And so we're gonna go into the pantry, which I have to warn you, going into somebody's pantry is a lot like going into somebody's closet. So it's very personal. We tried to tidy up a little bit as best we could. It's kind of like going to the fridge as well. But no promises again, but we're gonna go and try and find the supplies that we need. In the pantry, like I mentioned, this is our nut supply, and this is just completely ridiculous at this point. I think every time we go to the grocery store, we just grab some nuts because we think we're out. And so I just noticed that we've sort of accumulated all these random bags of nuts, and so I wanted to eat down some of those. The other thing we'll need is honey and our cinnamon sugar, which I actually keep around because this is great for caramel rolls. And this is great for like cinnamon toast if you want to do something with that. So I keep some pre-mixed cinnamon and sugar available, and so then I don't have to do any of that work for this recipe. Okay, so one of the rate limiting steps is getting the nuts ready and then actually assembling it. So I'm going to need butter to do that. So one of the things I'm going to do first is just get this ready to go so it's all melted. And then we'll be basting the Phyllo loaves with that. Okay, throw that into the microwave. Okay. Okay, and that's all melted and ready to go. So we need 3 cups of nuts, and some of these are chopped pretty good already, but so I've got some random almonds. I've got some walnuts, it looks like. And then I think I'll do these pecans. These are just some extra chopped walnuts, but we got plenty. So the nice thing about the walnuts is they came chopped already. The almonds obviously are slivered, but we'll have to do a little bit of prep work with the pecans. So I'm just going to get this stuff put away so we can kind of measure what we need. And then chop some of the pecans. And this just takes a while. All right, let's see what we got. I'm hoping that's going to be about perfect, and it looks like it is, so nice. Sometimes life just works out. So the biggest part of Leftover Masters Baklava edition is going to be assembly. So some people make their own phyllo dough, I've heard. I think that's crazy. Phyllo dough is pre-made. It comes in 40 sheets and it's all ready to go. And so I tend to just use the pre-made stuff. But the only thing is you have to take it out. Typically it's stored in the freezer. So obviously you have to take it out and give it plenty of time to thaw and work with. Also don't open it till you're ready because it will start to get kind of moist and then the sheets stick together and become harder to work with. And so this is a little futzy, but it's not horrible. I've done worse things, and the biggest thing is just getting the phyllo dough ready to go. and all spread out, and I think we're ready. So they talk about using a moist towel and all that kind of stuff to keep it moist while you're working with it. I don't really find that to be necessary. So what you do though is 2 sheets at a time. So again, it comes in 40 sheets, so you get your 2 sheets in there. This is where the butter comes in, and I just use a pastry brush. And the calorie content of baklava is just insane. It's better not to know. I think I tabulated it out once with this recipe, and it was like 700 calories a piece. So obviously it kind of depends on how big you cut your pieces, but there's lots of butter and lots of sugar and lots of carbs. So it's a treat for sure. Probably not something you want to eat every meal. So just a thin layer of this. So what we'll do is we'll put on 6 of these, and then we do our first layer of nuts and sugar. Okay, so we got 6 layers, and then we'll use half of our nuts and sugar here, and just again we'll spread those on. Mix those up a little bit. And again, I think the recipe calls for like 1/4 of a cup of sugar and some cinnamon or something like that, but I just keep this on hand, and then I just sort of spitball it, figure out what I need until it looks about right. Probably ends up being about what the recipe calls for. So then once we got that done, we're going to do another. Now if you happen to, every once in a while you get some of your phyllo dough and it sticks together, it's kind of futzy, or maybe it didn't thaw good, and so you know, 2 and 2 and 2 is great if you can do it, but if you accidentally have a torn one, or if you accidentally pick up 3 instead of 2, it's not a crucial deal. But the way this works is if you've got all this butter in between the leaves, and when you cook it, it crispens, so it gets this really nice, crunchy, crispy look to it. And again, if you tear a leaf or something, it's no big deal. You just keep going. So again, this is an old Turkish dessert dating back to the 1500s, but commonly made in Greece as well. If you go to Greek restaurants, a lot of times you'll see it there. And they say it's sort of an Easter treat in Greece because the 40 layers is symbolic of the 40 days of Lent. So that's part of the reason why I make it around this time of the year, but it just gives me an excuse to make something good. Honestly, you can make it midsummer, who cares? So, but conveniently, if you look at most prepackaged phyllo dough, oddly enough, there's about 40 sheets. So maybe there's some truth to that. So now this is the part we've got our nuts in. We've got our cinnamon sugar. Actually, I think I forgot the cinnamon sugar, so I'm just going to add that. Sorry. Hey, this is cooking. No apologies. It gets messy sometimes. I was too busy telling my story and I forgot that. So we'll get that on. No big deal. Off we go. So now this is the part where, like I said, it just gets a little bit tedious. The other thing that I want to do at this point, now that I've got things assembled, is I want to think about preheating my oven. So I'm going to take a brief pause here before I finish assembling and turn that on. All right, so we're going to turn it on at 325 to start. But while that's preheating, like I said, I'm just going to finish assembling. And this would be a good time for you to go take a bathroom break, because now I just got to put this together. think somebody at the Phyllo dough factory was playing a joke on me, because that was the hardest thing I've ever unwrapped. Oh God. All right, this is the part where it's called futzy. So again, you got a weird sheet. Who cares? Make it look the way it's supposed to and get back with business. But the only thing is, you'll see I kind of work with my hands a lot. So this dough tends to want to shift around. We did it. Okay. So you thought that was the futzy part. That's not really the futzy part. The futzy part is cutting these things. So a lot of times you'll see it in the store and it's cut in like a triangle. And when I first started making this, I used to do it that way, and it's just really, really sort of futzy. So I later found out that squares taste the same as triangles, and they're easier to cut, and so squares it is. But so you need a really sharp serrated knife, and what we're gonna do is pre-cut it and get that all ready to go. If you cook it first, it obviously gets really crunchy, and that's good, that's what you want. But if you try to cut it then, it'll just break apart. So you have to cut it ahead of time. Plus your syrup, which you'll be making at the end, your syrup will go into the cuts that you've made, and it goes in and around all the leaves, and so it's real important to have those cuts. But again, a sharp serrated knife is helpful, and like I said, it's just a little futzy, so you got to kind of go slow, hold it down with your fingers. That top leaf is going to want to come up, and you know what, if it does, who cares? Put it back down. If it tears, no big deal. Just persevere and you'll get done. So all right, I'm getting there. That's the part where it gets tricky. Now it sticks to the knife. Yep. So we're not professional chefs here, so we just make it look good enough to eat. That's all that matters. All right, one more cut. I think we can do it. Get that stuck down. After you're done cooking it, even though it looks like we're just tearing it apart, It all cooks the same, and it gets the syrup at the end, which finishes everything off, and it tastes amazing. So we're good. So now, once we're done cutting, this just goes in the oven. And again, we preheated that, ready to go, 25. So we will set our timer, 30 minutes, and then we get a break. So while we have our break, obviously we'll take a little time to clean up, and then I'm gonna get my syrup ready. The syrup will go on at the end, and we don't wanna start cooking it yet, but I'll just get it ready so it's good and ready to go. So the syrup we're gonna bring down in a pan, measuring cup. Syrup ready, and the syrup is 1 1/3 cups of sugar. Spitball it. 1 1/3 cups of water. And 1/3 cup of honey. So good. So while I'm getting this ready, I do want to dedicate this episode of Baklava, Leftover Masters, to my coworkers. And I try to bring this in to them as a treat every year around Easter time if I can. So I'm a little late this year because we're past Easter, but we'll probably still try and bring it in anyway. Now the only thing we add to that is a little bit of lemon juice, just a squirt. And then this will be our syrup, and we'll finish getting that ready during the last half hour or so of the baking. But otherwise, we got a little bit of a break now. So we've got 25 minutes, 24 minutes left on the cooking, and then we're going to adjust our timer, or adjust our temperature. We'll bring that down to 300 degrees, and then we'll cook for another 45 minutes to an hour. And in that last 20, 30 minutes, we'll get our syrup ready so that this is ready to go at the exact time that we bring the baklava out of the oven. But for now, we're going to take a little break. Okay, so we're back, and again, all we've done at this point is we've got the baklava in and cooking, and the kitchen smells amazing. I wish that's something that we could somehow get over the airwaves, but it smells all cinnamony in here. Anyway, so we have to get our syrup ready, so that's all we're doing right now. We've got about 13 minutes left to go on the baklava, and I'm just gonna get this going. So again, this was our honey and sugar and water and lemon zest, and we're just gonna cook this down into a simple syrup. All right, I'm just starting to get this to bubble, and again, with a simple syrup, we're just cooking down our water until we've got a nice syrup consistency. And so once I get this going, I'm just going to turn our heat down a little bit, and then just kind of keep it moving so it doesn't burn. There's probably some temperature or something you can check that some professional cook would know, but I kind of just do this. I take a little bit of that and just put it there. And that becomes my tester. So I can tell if it's starting to get kind of sticky like a syrup should. I know it's just about done. So we're getting there. Oh yeah. Okay. We've got a syrup, so we know that's done. So once our syrup is ready to go, and it is, I just turn it down to low, and I just want to keep it boiling while I get the baklava out. So this is the part That's so cool. And this is where the magic of baklava happens, where you just pour that right over and see how it finishes the boil. And it just boils all in between all of those leaves and cooks off the water. Now the hardest part of baklava is waiting, because this has to cool before you can eat it. So typically you'll kind of do this. I usually do it the night before if I'm going to take it somewhere, and then have it ready. But it's pretty hard. The kitchen smells amazing right now. It smells like honey and cinnamon and lemon and everything else all mixed together. And we sure would like to dive into this, but we gotta wait for it to cool. So we'll do that and dive in another day. All right. So thanks again for joining us on Leftover Masters, and we are so excited to dig into this as soon as it cools off enough to be able to do so. This is one of my favorite desserts, and a little futzy, but not too bad to make. The main issue is that there's a fair amount of cook time, not a lot of prep time, and but it's, like I said, it's worth it. So thanks again for joining us on Leftover Masters. If you like us, don't forget to follow us on Instagram or check us out on YouTube. We'll see you next time. Ready? All right, this is a test. Testing for baklava. We did it.